Test, test, test. Right, we're good. Can you just speak some things for me? I'm just trying to make sure my audio levels are good.
I don't know what to tell you. Wonder what kind of questions you're gonna ask me.
You wondering what kind of question?
Yeah. I don't know. Are you recording this too? Or just random photos? Okay. Holy moly.
It's a big thing, eh?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Do we need like tea or something? I
Tea?
can make us some tea.
It's very informal. I don't know how long this will take. Usually it takes like about 15 minutes.
Okay.
But sometimes it takes an hour.
Okay.
Sometimes, I don't know, it's just like chatting, you know?
Okay, we'll see how it goes.
It's just chatting.
All right.
I wanted to ask you about your practice in general. Mm-hmm. Like, what got you? What's the origins of, just the artist?
Okay.
Where did that come from?
Good question. So my first memory of being artistic was I was about 7 years old, and there was like a cookie container, a square cookie container, and I was mixing paint into it.
Okay.
Not realizing that it was leaking all over my brand new beautiful pink comforter that my mom had purchased for me. So I did realize that was happening and, threw it in the washer hoping it would come out before mom got home, and it didn't. I still have that blanket. It's my favorite piece.
That's good. That's good.
I started really diving into art in about 2012. I started painting independently and just like really like they just poured out of me. Like I just wanted to make and make and make. So I was making a lot of work at that time. And then I kind of started, pushing my work out there a little bit. I've done an art battle with Walnut. I did a piece with Bump. I got to do one of their roadwork pieces.
That's really good.
I had applied for the solo show exhibition at the Jubilee Auditoriums in both Edmonton and Calgary, and I was awarded. So I was downstairs in the Casa gallery that they have, and I got to see like the entire body of my paintings all in this place, and I really wanted to just keep growing and doing things. I started applying to like the Bounce Center and doing things, but unfortunately I didn't have a BFA, so I was finding that I was like kind of hitting some brick walls and like I couldn't go where I wanted to go. And I got to go to the Bounce Center as an event producer, which was my former career, and I fell in love with the space. And I was like, oh, I really, really, really want to do residency there someday. So I don't know, I just decided to come to art school. And I changed my career.
Okay.
So I had a 12-year career as like an event producer. I was planning high-level events. Yeah. And then I had had enough. I was like burnt out, really tired, didn't want to be in the corporate treadmill anymore. I really wanted to like work for myself in a way. And so here I am. I started as a painting major. Took one sculpture class, and I shifted gears.
You were converted.
I was converted. So a lot of my paintings were very sculptural. I really like thick impasto, like lots of thick applications. So it was such a natural progression for me to move into the 3D form. And then I fell in love with ceramics too. I really like being a part of the work and creating the work with my hands, and how the materials respond to my hands in a very different way than painting does. Yeah. Painting is mostly two-dimensional. You're working on a surface, not creating the form. So I definitely find quite a difference there.
Do you think there's like a detachment with the painting? Because like whenever I painted, like I always felt like I'm holding a paintbrush and using the brush as a tool to make the painting, but like instead of like when I'm a fabric major, so whenever I do with the cloth, I'm like, oh, I'm actually doing something to this.
I can see what you're saying for sure. Yeah, I do feel a little bit, but then I also think that the tool becomes an extension of you, right? Like, when you take a paintbrush in your hand and you create a brush stroke, that is such an extension of you. So I think it becomes a part of you in a way, that tool. Your hands are still the tools, but then it has an extension.
Okay.
You know?
That's fair.
Yeah. So I could understand because that was kind of like one of the thoughts I had too, but I don't know, it becomes so much a part of you as well. Yeah, because you're a painter, printish, yeah.
Some kind of
but it's very gestural.
It is
your
gestural.
work, yeah.
I appreciate that part.
I like it too. That's why I like ceramics. I love that gestural, you know. Where sculpture is so much more conceptual. You know, I spend more time thinking about my sculpture than actually making the sculpture, right? Because so much of it requires so much thought and consideration. So like, you know, I'm working on this piece now. It probably took me 6 weeks to think about, 1 week to create. You know, it's very different.
Yeah.
Ceramics takes me hours to create, you know, and the thinking comes during the process, right?
That's very similar to how I do a lot of things. Like, so how do you kind of, I guess, conceptualize that kind of distinction in your practice, where like a lot of it is just sitting down and thinking and looking for the meaning in everything almost, as compared to the more process-based, more action, you know, of making that kind of speaks for itself almost. You know, these kind of not necessarily conflicting but different dimensions. How do you kind of think about that?
I think with with my ceramics, I'm thinking about like a functional form that has a purpose.
Okay.
When I'm thinking about sculpture, I think about a piece of art that engages with the viewer, that has more of a ripple effect, you know, like it goes on. So I think that there's a difference, you know, when I'm thinking about a functional form, I'm thinking about how does it respond to the job that it's doing? How does it work in a logical way? How does it function in a way that's like, a lot of my work really has a lot to do with like how man-made materials and nature can be in harmony, right? So much of our world that we live in is so destructive to nature, and I am such a proponent of nature. I love, you know, plants and animals and, you know, biodiversity and that entire ecosystem. So I try to find ways that, you know, those man-made materials and natural materials can coexist. So when I'm making my ceramics, it's really about how does the plant benefit from this form, you know, and then when it comes to my sculptural work is how does the human, the viewer, connect with nature, and how does, like, I use a lot of industrial materials, reclaimed materials, found materials, and then natural materials. And sometimes I use technology too, because I find that there's an interesting connection between how technology is on our lives and how it integrates into everything else. So I always try to find harmonious ways that they can be together. So that's kind of like where my head's at when it comes to that. I have a hard time translating that through my paintings, though, right? Because like I can't seem to harmonize man-made materials and nature in that way, with the exception of creating like a visual representation of nature, right?
I was a fiber major. I'll drop my 2 cents in here now. Because like, if you're painting with like, on a canvas, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could paint with natural materials.
It's true,
use dyes or use like earth pigments or rocks or something. So there are, I think, ways to do it, but maybe not necessarily how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, it doesn't translate with like acrylic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, like, but yeah, natural like fiber, when you're getting into like osages and things like that. You know, a lot of dyes are actually like bugs. Yeah. Roundup bugs. Cochineal. Yeah, that's the word I couldn't remember. Yeah. It's been a while since I took a fiber class, but I did take a cloth dyeing class, which was fascinating. Yeah, nature's so interesting.
It really is. But so, when you're thinking about nature, you're thinking about nature in the grand sense of it, in terms of like this idea of nature, or are you thinking about nature in terms of just anything specific to nature?
I think I think it's the grand sense of nature. Like, you know, some of it dives into like environmentalism and climate concerns and things like that. But I really think that, in my opinion, and like where I come from, is and because I have that corporate world background, you know, I spent 10, 12 hours a day at a computer, completely, you know, divided from and disassociated from nature. And I noticed that my mental, physical health, spiritual health just suffered. Whereas now I landscape in the summer, I'm helping nature grow, I'm trimming it, I'm pruning it, I'm showing it care and love and watering it. That relationship with myself is so much stronger. So I think that in general society, I think because we spend so much time in front of our televisions, and we spend so much time in offices, and we spend so much time in our homes, and you know, we have this very individualistic society, and we're so disassociated from not only nature but each other, that I think that our society is almost experiencing like a breakdown. You know, people are suffering with depression, people are suffering with, you know, all of these ailments that I think so many could be eased by a reconnection with nature, you know, and I think that's something that's really, really missing. You know, like we eat the food that's grown from plants and animals and, you know, things like that. Like we're so much a part of that. And I think that, you know, Indigenous people are so correct when we're caretakers of nature. As humans, we're caretakers. And I just think that the way that our society is so driven towards technology and, you know, economy and, you know, consumerism, that we're really missing that. And I think that that's why people are struggling so much in many ways. You know, we might have materialistic gain, but we're also missing this, I don't even know how to describe it, this connection, you know? So I always try to find ways, because everyone that I've ever talked to always feels better when they've been for a walk. Yeah. Or they go to the mountains, or they've been camping, or they're gardening, or, you know, soil it releases endorphins, you know, so it's kind of like that. It's very general. Oh. Yeah.
I agree with that completely. Like I always think like since I've been up here in Calgary, like the common thing is like, because it's so cold all the time, or most of the time, like not having to wear shoes and socks like every day, outside, inside, is like standard, right? But back home, I'm like, because it's so warm, like when I'm at home, barefoot, like inside, outside, going down the road even sometimes, you know? Yeah. And it's just like that connection to walking on the grass and, you know, being so close to the forest and the bush and everything. It does something to you, I think. I don't know what, but you feel, as a cliche, more at peace, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's lots of studies about it too, and like I find, you know, art school is really stressful at times, you know, like it's just so intense that, you know, one day I was having a bit of a meltdown and my friend's like, come outside. We took off our shoes and we put our bare feet on the grass, and like there was just this inherent sense of relief and that comes over you, you know, and I fear that we don't embrace that enough. Yeah. You know, where's your home? Where are you from?
I'm from Trinidad.
Trinidad, okay. Yeah. I haven't been there. No.
Not many people have.
I can't even place it on the...
It's north of South America, so you know where Venezuela is?
Yes.
It's right off the coast of Venezuela. Okay,
so yes, very warm climate, very tropical.
Very tropical, yeah.
So you get lots of like heavy rains and
yeah.
You know, things like that. But yeah, plants growing everywhere. Dirt roads.
Yeah.
I'm seeing in my head.
It's a nice place.
I bet.
It's a nice place.
And what made you come to Calgary?
The city's... I know about Calgary. I came to the school.
Okay.
You know, people ask me like, why you come to Canada? I'm like, no, I came to EU.
Okay.
Calgary is just an upset. But, you know, if I would be specific, like, I could have gone to another art schools, like in Toronto or whatever. But Calgary is good because, like, it doesn't have many Caribbean people. And so I think it was like if I went to Toronto, I'd be around people who speak like me, think like me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not the same as, I'll just like go and hang out with them.
Yeah.
And not getting immersed in culture.
Right.
So that's why I came here.
Well, and Calgary, I think, is such a diverse place too.
It is, yeah.
You know, like it's very diverse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a place on the rise.
Yes.
In many ways.
Oh, I agree. I think the art scene here is growing exponentially too, from, you know, where it was even just a few years ago. Yeah, that thing likes to fall on the ground. I'm not sure why. It just kind of has a mind of its own.
It's a poltergeist.
I know. I think about taping it to the table frequently. It never did that last year, but this year it like.
Is the kid there?
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm not correct.
Yeah, it's fine. It's made out of metal. Yeah. It's fine.
Bone strike a spring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe we should put some padding down on the floor for it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is one of those.
It's just like a gymnast lamp. It's like, I'm just gonna try this out. Yeah. Yeah. It was like a lamp I found at a thrift store or something, and had like this ugly plastic coating on it. So I found a piece of fabric and sewed it, and I really liked the little daisies on it because daisies, I think, are just so happy. They're such a happy little flower. That's so it just adds some lighting. Yeah, you know, like, because sculpture, we're in the basement. It's like cold.
We're in the dungeon. That's what it is.
I know. We're such basement, like, we're dungeon dwellers here. It's like we get some natural light, like fiber. You guys have the most beautiful studios. Like, I went up there one day and you guys like had a fridge and a kettle. I was like, we need a fridge and a kettle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're stepping up in the world.
I brought those in. I was like, yeah, we need to have some real life in here. Yeah, make it a little bit easier to survive the long days. Yeah, because most days are at least 12 hours here. Yeah, you're working hard. I was here till 1 a.m. this morning. Yeah.
That's tough.
I'm working on this piece. I think maybe I like this one. So it's called Hive, and I've created these like little seed pods. So inside here is soil, perlite, and then I've made these little seed bombs. So it's native wildflower seeds, and they're encased in this clay, and it fits like really nicely in your hand. So the concept is like, we're having a show on Wednesday at Neverland, and I want people to take one of these with them and then plant them in the spring. And all of these plants are actually really good for bees. Yeah. So it's like really like seeds for bees in a way, right? So yeah, I'm asking people to plant them and then take photos of the flowers once they grow and then send them to me, and then I'll create an installation with all the photos. Yeah. So in this way that we're also building a community too, like a community of all these people who plant this, and you know, you're helping nature grow. And
you're doing. I saw your name on upstairs in the IKG, the Christina Bartlett show. So
yeah.
It's very similar ideas happening.
Yeah. So I did her participation piece, The Air That We Breathe, and I was inspired by that. So she had really like gotten people to engage with her, and she does a lot about like air quality and you know, particles in the air and that sort of thing. So I was really inspired by that piece, how she had us document the pollution in the air every week. So we, you know, talk about how much particulates were in the air, how much methane was in the air, and carbon dioxide and things like that. I was really inspired by that. The other thing we had to do too is we had these prompts, things to consider. So, you know, smells. What was the last thing that you smelled? And, you know, like to sit down and think about, okay, what was the last thing that I smelled? And to like really, like I had to really think about that, because smelling is such an automatic thing for us that we just take it for granted. So I'd really have to sit down and be like, okay, what did I, you know, and then it would be like coffee or French toast or, you know, things that I actually paid attention to, you know? Like, you'll notice things that smell really, really bad or things that smell really, really good, right? But on the general, like, you're not really thinking about what you're smelling unless it activates your senses.
Yeah.
So I was really interested in like how she created this community with all of us, and we were sending postcards to each other every week, sharing our stories and things like that. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, and it really inspired me, and it really made me more aware of my surroundings, right? Like, the other thing about this piece is they're perennial seeds, so they'll come back every year. And they're going to seed out. So they'll just generate more and more and more flowers. And it becomes like this durational piece. One of my favorite artists is Joseph Boys. Yeah. And are you familiar with his 7,000 Oaks piece?
Yes, that's a really good.
Such a great piece, really, right? I love that piece. I was like, mind blown out. Like, that's so cool. And like his other piece, where he was like in an apartment building or in an apartment with a coyote.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I think the piece is just called even Coyote. I'm not 100% sure. Don't take my word for it. But he was in an apartment, an empty apartment with a coyote for I think 3 days or something. And at first the coyote was just like not angry. It was like not having anything to do with it. But over time, they began to bond, right? So it's like this really interesting piece. Joseph Boys, I think, is pretty cool. Yeah. Some of his pieces are like way beyond me, but I think he was such a great artist of his time.
Yeah.
And that 7,000 Oaks piece just continues to inspire me in terms of duration and community. Like, it took all those people to like come together to plant all those trees. You know, it was amazing. 7,000 trees. Like, that's a lot of trees.
And a lot of pieces of stone.
Pardon?
A lot of pieces of stone as well.
They're stolen?
No, stone.
Oh, stone. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, he had those like little place markers. Yeah. And now the trees like have grown way beyond those. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite artists.
I always think about that, like finding like how can your art like impact the world, the community, whatever, in that kind of way. Yeah. Like, not in terms of infamy or whatever, or famousness or whatever, but in terms of like engaging people in this kind of almost communal effort. It's kind of even like this thing you're doing here. I really love. I love that. Like getting art is just not this looks pretty and that's it. You know. Yeah. Something that makes people have to consider what they're doing in their life at least. You know, and even preferably do an action. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, and the thing is like, you know, it goes beyond that too, because, you know, when you're sitting outside, you can smell the flowers. You know, you can, and you're helping another community, such as bees, you know, which really needs a lot of help. You know? I feel for the bees, you know, just, so we need them. They're irreplaceable. Like, pollination is such an important part of like our food system, everything, you know, so I think all the help that we can give them.
No, that's it. I've been going on deep dives into things like the landscape here. Yeah. Because one of my I guess my interests right now are in just like geography, and both like man-made and natural, and like the relationships between that kind of thing, and like what we have done to shape this space we call Calgary into what it is today. Kind of like, I'm just like, the more I read it, the more I'm just like, oh, we have really done some questionable stuff, you know, like clearing away all the wildflowers and just like planting grass and all these type of things, and just had me thinking like the further you get away from the river at times, it's almost like if like more barren it gets.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And grass for me is kind of like Gastronomy is kind of silly, you know. It doesn't do anything really, except, you know, it feeds cows, you know, bunny rabbits, I think. You know, but the fact that we have like lawns and stuff, and then we water them just to cut them, they're so aesthetic.
It's a very silly thing.
I would prefer, you know, clover.
Yeah.
Like clover grows flowers. It's, you know, that sort of thing. So grass to me is kind of this funny thing. It's beautiful, like, you know, but it requires a lot of water, a lot of maintenance, you know, and I know it creates homes and stuff, and it is a part, and it's an important part, but like having grass attached to your house on the front lawn makes no sense to me, you know?
I'm trying to convince my father of that back home, because he's about, you know, going on and cutting the grass, you know, I'm just like, I'm trying to tell him it's not laziness, you know, I don't feel like it's like, no, you have to think about the natural environment.
Yeah, why are we cutting it? Just let it grow.
Let it grow, you know.
Why does it have to be like, you know, 3/4 of an inch? You know? It's nonsense. Yeah, I'd say just let it grow. I don't cut it at my place. I have a rental, and I'm like, nah. And I don't rake up leaves either. That's, you know, those, or acorns, you know, just let them be. They're there for a reason.
They're putting nutrients in the soil. That's what they do.
Exactly. You know, That's
exactly what it is.
Yeah, all that breakdown, all that organic matter is so important to the whole cycle. You know? So, yeah, just let it be. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about, what do you call this thing? About your piece upstairs.
Yes.
I want to know, what is it? What's going on there? Because I know it's part of like a bigger series.
Yes. I built that series during COVID. So I had a lot of time on my hands, feeling very existential, you know.
As you do.
COVID was a really tough time, you know, when you're considering, you know, being isolated from all your friends and your family, and you're encouraged to stay home and be disconnected. And, you know, for me, that was a really tough time. I'm a very social person. I need my family and my friends like I need air. And I was feeling very disconnected, very sad, very depressed, you know? So I started creating that body of work, and I was really thinking about, you know, in terms of like our environment and our landscape. So many of those pieces represent loosely parts of our environment, right? Like I have this like tropical water piece, and then I have that other one that's more like a lake or something in terms of colors. And then I have the galaxy piece, and the one that looks like a stormy sky, and one that like I was thinking about northern lights and stuff. So I was thinking a lot about that, and just like how that's all connected, and how we're all connected, and the ripple effects of all of our actions, you know, during COVID, during our life, and during, you know, our time here. So like pale blue dot, that piece there that you're showing, have you ever read the book by like Carl Sagan? And he says in the book that really, like, if we look at ourselves in our life, we're just a tiny speck of blue dust in this galaxy. Like, we're so small and infinitesimal, you know, but at the same time, each action that we create has an effect. So I was really thinking about that, and because, you know, during COVID, we were, you know, if we went out and we were sick, we could have infected somebody else, which would have catastrophic effects depending on their immune system and all of these other, like, their vulnerabilities and stuff like. So all of these things just kind of, you know, had these effects, and I often wondered, and the only thing that kind of gave me a tiny bit of like hope, I guess, during COVID was that because we weren't driving our cars or flying regularly or commuting all the time, and, you know, buses weren't on the road as much, it's like maybe nature would have a little bit of a reprieve from, you know, like there was that funny video that came out about, oh, there's dolphins in Venice, you know what I mean? And it ended up being debunked and stuff, but even like that concept of nature finding ways to kind of like recuperate was something that gave me like a little bit of like hope and like some goodness coming out of this really awful time, right? So that's kind of like where my head was at when I had created that body of work.
I keep thinking about you keep bringing up this idea, this relationship with nature that I think should be striven for. You know, everybody should try to in some way reconnect to that. I guess keep thinking about it. The times when I felt most connected to nature, most like maybe not connected, but at balance with nature, I guess is a way I could put it. You know, like my life has always been slower. In the sense like I haven't necessarily been chasing deadlines. Or if I have deadlines, it's like they don't feel as stressful. Like I did a workshop out in Maine like 2 summers ago. Esther, which is like a craft school.
That's cool.
It's really nice. But it's Maine, and so it's cool since like Atlantic waters, a lot of pines right by the ocean, rocks, really nice. And like it was long days, like it was like really long days, like it's like you got up at 8, you started working and you finished whenever you wanted at 12.
Probably,
stayed up all night, because like
Yeah.
you got 2 weeks to do these projects and you're just working, you know. But like even amongst all that stress that it was, you know, there was like, because like the actual architecture of the place, because like it was built out of wood, out of the same wood, out of the properties, so like pines, and like there was like no like insulation or anything like that. Literally just a board, and then like some slats as insulation at summertime, so it's not that it's needed really as for the south anyway. And then like, but like you're always hearing the ocean and you're smelling the sea breeze, and you know you could just take a walk in the forest or take a dip in the ocean. Yeah, I think it's just like it did not feel as stressed. You know, I felt more. I felt like every time that I was being the stress was getting too much, you know, tiredness or whatever, just like go and take a walk.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh no, this is really pretty. You know? It's just like, and so like I don't know, it's just. I wish that life in general was like that. Like, you could just switch that. You know? I mean, and there are ways to do it. I think, like in the city, like there are a lot of some very nice green spaces, I guess. You know, but like to really get that, you really gotta like, take a drive out to the mountains or go like some backwater places, you know, where nobody lives. You know,
you need to get away from civilization in a sense. Like, I just did a piece that I found really impactful. It was really interesting to me because our Marie Schaefer was kind of like the founder of Soundscapes. And as an artist, he really worked a lot with, instruments and nature sounds and things like that. And he had this concept he called sonic sewers. That in cities we live in this noisy environment that is so polluted with these unnatural sounds. So I had done this piece where I was really, really interested in immersing the students, like our class, in this natural environment. So I took my boom mic and all my, Zoom recorder, and I headed down to the Bow River. And I was going to record the river because it's so beautiful just to listen to the river, right? Like I always feel so much better after just sitting by the river. So I'm trying to record the river, and all I hear is the construction all around and all the traffic on Memorial Drive. So I was really frustrated. And then Outside of my apartment that I live in, there's this tree that all these like little sparrows live in, and they just chirp, and I love it. It's beautiful. So as I'm trying to record this beautiful symphony of these, little sparrows having their morning chat, I have cars driving by, and then there's a helicopter, and then there's the train, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I totally understand what you're saying like this, but when you get away from it, that's why everyone heads out to the mountains, to get away from all those, human sounds, all of this polluted, and so I was really interested in that work, and it really made me listen differently to my surroundings. Like what Christina kind of showed me about like smells, and pollutants all around me. She had us take a look at our location on Google and what's around us, and I was like, oh man, there's like a golf course right near me. They use all kinds of chemicals all the time to make sure that the grass is super green. You're thinking about them mowing the lawns all the time. Then there's Bow Trail, then there's 17th Avenue, then there's Crowchild Trail. I was like, I'm so surrounded by pollutants, like, these inhalants. And then I'm thinking about, Arnold Schaefer and all this noise pollution. And I'm like, wow, like, we are so disconnected. And I think about like civilization and like how we used to live so connected to the land, and some civilizations still do and some communities still do, but in terms of Western culture, we're so disconnected from the thing that makes us feel good. I don't feel good after sitting on my couch all day watching Netflix. Actually, I feel gross. So, whereas, I go for a walk and I get out of the city and it's quiet and I just listen to the birds and the water, I feel so different. It's really, to me, that's remarkable.
I agree. I think that's one thing I've noticed with my use of technology, because I used to be a photographer before coming here, and when you have that framing, that the technology often gives a recording device or like a camera or some kind of thing that is supposedly objective. You kind of actually see the real thing that you just in your daily life you ignore. I've done recording before outside and I've experienced similar things where oh, it's very quiet, I can just do it. And oh no, you gotta now contend with all these songs that you just fade out. And even with photography, you could walk past things and not even notice. It's so crazy. I was walking home. I missed the train, the last train, and I live fairly close, about 5 kilometers away, so it's a good.
That's a good walk.
It's a good walk.
That's a good walk.
Yeah, it's a good walk. It's good, stretch your legs. And I was walking on, it was dark, it was night, it's 1 o'clock in the night, and I was just walking, and I looked up, and I was like, what the hell is that? It was an old, telephone pole, one of those wooden ones that are rare these days, kind of thing.
Yep.
And I was like, I never noticed that. I was also shaped weird because they cut it almost like a beam, but then with a slant on the top. So I was like, huh. And I spent a good 5 minutes looking at it. I was just like, I ride past there every day for the whole summer, and I didn't even notice this. And it's just that perspective that when you just slow down and you don't have these distractions around you, it's just just get the world around you, and kind of then I think to answer what you're talking about, you kind of then could kind of notice, or if you're aware of that, you can notice the deficiencies that are around in your environment that you kind of, if you had, might have made life a little better.
I think that's one thing that I have really gained from art school is this awareness of my surroundings that I feel like when I was in my former career, I just like blindly went through the world not knowing what was going on. I never read the news. I never paid attention. I got up, I went to work, I did my work, I came home, I decompressed from my day, I went to bed. That was it. And now I pay attention to the things that I smell, or to the things that I hear, or my connection with a simple material, you know what I mean, like clay or wood or plants. Like I have this awareness, you know, now because you've told me the story, I'm going to look at telephone poles. You know what I mean? Like I've never ever seen that before, but now I'm just going to be driving around being like, oh yeah, oh. But that's what I love, is these conversations of things that we become so aware of, you know, and I love it because I feel so much more connected to everything, you know, not just the community we have here, the materials, but just like everything. I feel like everything's just been activated and heightened, and I think it's such a privilege and to live this life of creativity and, you know, connection in this way. And it has also enhanced my relationships with my family and my friends and stuff. You know they don't always speak the same jargon, and sometimes they look at me like I'm an alien with 3 eyes and 2 heads, and they're like, what are you talking about, Jessica? And, you know, I'll be like, oh, look at that thing over there, and they're like, I have never noticed that, you know? And it's, I think it's so beautiful in so many ways.
I think you're the mad one in the group kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A little bit of like Alice in Wonderland, you know? Just down a rabbit hole. But I really appreciate, you know, your team selecting my work to be in that gallery. I think it's such a privilege to like show that work. I've never shown that work before. It was kind of like, you know, I did it and then I rolled it up and that was it, you know? So I had a week here where I got to show my work in the Ivan Gallery, which I think was really, really cool. And I didn't know what to do for it because so much of my sculptures are very ephemeral. They don't last for a long time, or they're so durational that I don't have places to keep them going, so I dismantle them and stuff. And that's a body of work that I've been sitting on and never shown, and so it was a great way to show that, and I'm really glad that you came down here and discovered it.
Yeah. No,
you know?
I'm glad that we found it. I think I really, when I came out, I saw it, look at this. This is beautiful stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, and you work a lot with fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much, I think.
It's okay. I'm too much in ceramics. You know, there's so many things you want to do, and there's so many amazing things you can do, and your mind just goes like a million miles an hour, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you realize there's just not enough time in this lifetime to do all the things that you want to do. So you have to like
find ways,
be selective and hone it into certain areas. And yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, I really love ceramics. I love the natural body of clay. So I think like I'll definitely pursue that outside of the institution when I graduate.
So what do you think you're going to do when you graduate?
So that's a great question.
It is a great question.
You know, I think all of us who are near graduation really think about that.
The dread?
I'm not dreading it.
Not dreading it?
This is my 5th year, so I am, you know, A, excited and B, scared. But I am excited about the community that we have here and the community that I've built here. I'm excited about all the things that are going to happen outside, but I have a couple of jobs already, not art jobs lined up, but I have, you know, I work landscaping in the summer. I work at the Crossroads Farmers Market, a little cheese shop. You know, I have a cleaning job. So I'm going to have like, you know, some jobs that kind of have some money coming in, and then I really want to pursue ceramics outside of. And with the landscaping company that I'm with, there's a really great team of very talented individuals that are currently making very cool stuff. They kind of have their own thing that they're designing. different crib boards and things using CNC machines and really like new technology, and I'm really interested in working with them. I will also apply for public art projects and see what comes out of that. You know, those are really hard to obtain.
Yeah.
So,
But
you
they're
know.
pretty cool when you get them.
Right? So, you know, like I'm not going to hold my breath or, you know, take the check to the bank until I have it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so like I'm kind of just going to be, you know, always having a creative practice in some aspect, whether it's, you know, working with the design company or working with ceramics or, you know, trying for public art and, you know, stuff like that. I definitely don't want to sit at a computer for 10 to 12 hours a day ever again. So that is like for sure not going to happen. But yeah, that's.
What about in like in an institutional setting, like a art gallery or museum? You're into those kind of things?
Yeah, no, not really. You know, like if the opportunity was a good fit for me, you know, I would really like to, you know, get married, have a kid. That's a really big thing, and art school isn't conducive to anything outside of your art practice. Right?
Don't tell the young ones that.
Like, you know, this is so consuming that, so, you know, that's my number one priority leaving the institution is really growing that part of my life. I realized, you know, a couple of years ago, like my work was all about connection, but yet in my personal life, I was so isolated and alone. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. How can I talk about connection when I am so disconnected? So I have really, really changed a lot of my processes and thoughts and the way that I connect with my family and friends, and reestablishing and rebuilding and reconnecting with all of those relationships around me, you know, because like I said, I felt so hypocritical talking about connection when I was so disconnected from everything in my life because I was so focused on this all the time. So as much as I focus on my art and I work hard on my art, I also really make sure to take time and nurture my friends, families, you know, personal connections and relationships and things like that. I really, you know, you have to balance it. And I think the one thing that I don't agree with is that art for art's sake and everything has to be just art. You know, you have to decide whether you're, you know, a family person or an artist, and you have to give up your family in order to pursue art, or you have to give up personal connections to pursue art, and I don't agree with that mentality. I really believe that, you know, in hybridizing and connecting those things, right? I never believe in polarizations of anything. I always believe that there's a way to bring things together to create a whole, you know, so... You know, it's like biodiversity. You know, it's different trees, but together they do something so wonderful, and they grow together, and they, you know, certain plants are meant to be together, and they help each other. You know, I think the same is, you know, with our connections. You know, and I think if we spend too much time on our art and we lose those, we actually lose what makes us us. And the artists that we are. Because so much of the, you know, I talk about in my artist statement, so much of my colors and materials is really about us being together, coming together and making something, you know, that's a whole. So that's really where my head is so at, you know. So that's what I plan on doing after May. May 24th, I think the date is. The countdown is on.
We'll have a party.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, have a party. You know, backyard, fire pit. Let's roast some hot dogs. Yeah.
Win some paintings.
Exactly. Everyone gets a canvas. Yeah, do whatever you want. It's all art. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I plan on doing. Do you have any idea what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going back home?
Eventually.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of what's spending settling down seasons for
Yeah.
where home is where the family is, home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
So I will eventually go back.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I feel like I have a sense of duty to give back.
Yep.
For all the opportunities I got to go.
That's fair. I agree with that. I feel like being an artist is almost it's a big responsibility. What you put out there, I really believe is a big responsibility. And that's why I really love my practice so much. In my early days, I did geometric abstraction, and I was working through a lot of, heavy emotional stuff, and just because that's what we do. We pour out our feelings into these pieces, right? They are a part of us. They're things that we think and feelings that we have, and so that's so back then my work was so different, and here it's grown so much into what it is now, which I'm so grateful for. Yeah.
So if you're looking for therapy, come to us.
Basically, yeah. That and a few other things. Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting into when I came to art school. When I woke up one night in the middle of the night while I was still in my former career, and I looked around my room and I was like, this isn't my life. Like, I just felt so disconnected from myself. And then I asked myself, what would I do if I won the lottery? And I was like, I'd go to art school. And I was like, why am I waiting to win the lottery? I don't even play the lottery. I was like, why don't I just go and, take the risk and do the things? And now here I am. I'm 40 years old. I graduate as a 40-year-old. I think is, kind of cool. I'm good with that, I don't know if I could have handled art school when I was so young, because it's, it's really tough. And the things that we learn, and it's heavy. It's really heavy sometimes. So, I don't know, hats off to anyone who's ever been through the process of really discovering themselves through this process. Through the artistic process, through all of it. I think it's to be admired. And I think that I think we're just one kind of artist. We're a visual kind. I think that there are, chefs who are artists with food, and there are, architects who are artists with materials and framers, and even someone who creates roads, I think is such an artistic process. It just blows my mind. How did they figure that out?
That's my philosophy as well. I just think that, like, I see that all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, all these people who do these specific things, like, it is art in its own way. Mm-hmm. Like, what I just wish, like, is that, they had a way of looking at it that,
yeah.
It's looking at this mundane act of fixing a pipe, and there's so much going on there, if like your mind's open to that,
Yeah. I even think about like irrigation systems, like what an art form that is in its own right. And, like setting up all that.
Oh yeah.
Like you said pipe, and I was like, oh yeah, like. Then you got to think about pressure and all of these things, and I'm just like, it blows my mind what we're capable of. You and I, we're visual artists. We create visual pieces. I don't know if I could ever design a road, and then figure out all the math, and can handle weight, and that's just not my jam. Yeah. My jam's over here. Yeah. This is my jam. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for people who, find their place, even accountants, like
and numbers.
Hats off. How do you do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm really grateful that I found this path in my life that's really led me to here and to where I'll go beyond. And I feel like, you know, when I leave the institution, I feel like the whole world's just gonna like open up, you know, and we'll just see what happens. You know, just see where the wind blows me. You know?
I'll be excited to see where it is.
Thanks, Rick. I got you. I'm interested in your work, and I would like to see where you go in the future, because I think that you really have this incredible expression that you're showing, and with the way that your marks are very gestural. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And you have such a interesting cultural background too, you know, that I'm not familiar with, but now I'm more interested in like learning a little bit more about that, you know? Like I think that's, you know, the world has so much history that we don't know. You know? So I think it's great that we as individuals right now during this time get to express, you know, and contribute to this world. And I really take that responsibility really seriously. So we'll see what happens.
My last question for you.
Sure.
Quick one. This is more so for Jocelyn than
Okay.
me. What do you think your hands hold memory?
Pardon?
Do you think your hands hold memory?
Hands hold memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And do you think that your hands... What do you think your hands are... What are they made for? Or what have you made them to do? Like, what are they specified to do?
My hands?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I think someone told me fairly recently that when someone dies, we remember their hands. There's so many things about a person that you'll forget, but their hands you'll always remember. And you know, even as I'm like touching my two hands together, I think about this touch and connection and, you know, everything that we feel on a daily basis. Sometimes when I'm throwing clay, I feel like I'm not just learning, but I'm remembering. You know, and I've said that a few times to a few people that I feel like I'm remembering, because they automatically, they seem to know what they're doing, and I don't know. So, you know, hands to me are probably one of the most important, you know, what would you call it? Like, that we have. I don't know what to call them, but they're, you know, I couldn't imagine the world with no hands. You know, what would I do? You know, holding another person's hand, or petting your cat or your dog, or touching your lover, or feeling a material, you know, putting something in your mouth. You know, I think these are all such wonderful things, and especially in fiber, you know, the touch of something brings you so much comfort. So hands to me, I don't know, I really think they're like the most important thing. I love that connection, you know? Think about when you were, I don't know if you ever did this when you were in grade school, but how you'd all hold hands and sing a song. Yeah. You know? What's the first thing you do when you're comforting somebody? You hold their hand, you know? Yeah. Hands, I think, are both a tool, you know? But they're also, I don't even know how you describe it. It's such a good question. Yeah, Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Jocelyn for the...
Jocelyn comes out with them, you know?
Yeah.
Jocelyn on his hands thing
Well,
these
you
days.
guys work with your hands a lot too.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You
That's
guys are very...
one of the pivotal discussions in craft.
Oh, yeah.
What are your hands about?
Yeah.
Do hands hold them?
Mm-hmm.
Hands are about...
So what are your hands about?
I don't know. On the one hand, I think, like you said, I think you put it very poetically. You said they remember. Because, like, I play guitar, right? Well, I played guitar, let me be more specific. Like, I have a guitar at home, but, like, I used to play, like, a lot, like, 2 years ago before I came in. And then, like, coming here, like, another time. But whenever I pick it up once in a while, my hands just do what it has to do naturally. And, like, it's not that it's uncomfortable in a way because, like, my muscles are not accustomed to that. But they know what to do. And they do it. But then I also think about, like, these strange actions that my hands can do that are super specific. Like when I'm making paper, like, you have to, like, after you press it, you have to, like, take it off the felt to then hang it to dry. And it's not that that's such a complicated task. It's just taking a piece of wet-ish paper and hanging it up. But, like, depending on the thickness of the sheet or whatever, there's a finessing to it. Because you could tear it, you could do whatever. And, like, my hands have got, I only noticed that my hands, I'm actually good at doing that. Because watching other people do it is like they're struggling, and I'm like, so there is something going on here that just time and repetition have just conditioned me to be able to do this. So it's very interesting.
I think feeling, like, it always amazes me when you feel something on your skin and you look and it's like this tiny little bug. But you can feel it so intensely. Like, touch to me is just, like, and how things feel is always really, really interesting to me. I like clay because I like the mud.
The mud, yeah.
Like, I love it.
Yeah.
Not only do I love the smell of it, but I love it on the wheel, like, sliding through my hands and just, like, feeling it. And how, I can tell the thicknesses of the clay based on my hands. It gets amazing, So, hands, I think, I don't know if I could live in a world if I didn't have hands. I think that would just, I couldn't imagine, like, throwing clay with my feet. I don't know how that would work. I hope I never have to find out. Like, that would be, I've seen some drawers draw with their feet. Some artists draw with their feet. And hats off. And paint with their feet. Yeah, rock on. Yeah.
I would think, like, because I've thought about doing that. Maybe not with my feet, but like with my less dominant hand. And, like, the relationship, like, because a lot of my skill comes from this hand, where I feel right-handed. And this hand is like, I don't know, just the brute force hand, just does whatever it needs to do when it needs to.
It's support, right?
It's a support. And whenever I actively try to draw something with it, I always find that my relationship with it gets very weird. I'm just like, why aren't you doing what I'm telling you to do? You can't do what I'm telling you to do, as compared to this, which is so easy. Like, even like cutting, you ever use the scissors with the wrong hand?
No,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't count.
You just don't have that. No, for sure. I feel that. I know. I can't do anything well with my less dominant hand. I try to brush my teeth. They say it's good to practice, stimulating the other side of your brain by using your less dominant hand. But, like, brushing your teeth, it's totally different task. Like, you have to be so much more, like,
you have to focus.
It's, where it's, I could, like, brush my teeth and, make coffee at the same time, right? Like, it's interesting. That's a good question. Yeah. Something to think about. Yeah.
I think we're good.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. This was good fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, cool.
I'm so glad you shared with us.
Yeah.
We were struggling.
Yeah, it's too bad Jocelyn was saying that no one applied. Like, no one applied. So, it's really too bad that a lot of